Yo, what is up, y'all? My name is Devin, and today we're going to be breaking down different forms of testosterone administration, which is most effective and provides the fastest results. After that, we're going to be going over which administration allows you to reach stable blood concentration levels. And then finally, we're going to be looking at which form is most common and which form is also most cost effective, right? Because we want to transition, but we don't want to go broke doing so. If you are interested in working with me within the one-on-one coaching space, if you'd like to work together on a custom meal or training plan, definitely go ahead and email me, or my website, which has a bunch of other services as well, is going to be linked down below. So let's dive into it, okay? Let's discuss what forms of testosterone there are. First, injections, and I'm going to link that together with auto injections for much of the video until it comes to the cost portion, and then I'll make the distinction because there is a distinction to be made there. The second form is going to be gel. The last form is going to be pellet insertion, okay? Which form is going to give you the fastest result? Which is going to take you from your baseline level of testosterone, which your body naturally produces, to more than your body would naturally produce in order to help you transition the fastest. So the number one fastest way is going to be intramuscular injection. You have to think when you're injecting your muscles, you're bypassing your skin, you're bypassing subcutaneous fat, the fat that's right underneath your skin, and injecting straight into the muscle where it's then metabolized, right? That's going to be the fastest form. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The second fastest form within injections is going to be subcutaneous. Obviously, you're injecting into the fat, not into the muscle. The good part about this is that the needle is smaller, the needle is less thick because it has less layers to break through. In my opinion, subcutaneous injections are like 10 times easier, okay? The second quickest form of administration is going to be gel. Most of the homies that I know just rub the gel on their arm daily, and that does absorb into your skin through your fat cells into the muscle where it's of course metabolized into your bloodstream. This is the second quickest form, and the form that does take a little bit longer are going to be pellet insertions. This takes from 24 to 72 hours in order to enter your bloodstream. Obviously depends on how fast you metabolize it. It is the least quickest form, but this is just within a very small window of time, right? This brings us to our next point, which is going to be which form allows us to have stable blood concentration levels. When I say that, I mean we're not having dips, peaks, and valleys from administration to administration, right? The most stable form of testosterone administration is pellets. So this is where pellets really shine. Pellets are inserted either every 3 to 6 months, but it seems like 3 months is more common for most folks. You go to the clinic, you go to the doctor, they insert the pellet beneath your skin, and the pellet is slow release and it dissolves slowly over time. So this controlled release allows for stable blood concentration levels until it's time for that next administration after 3 months, right? So you have to see that's going to be much more stable than the other two forms of administration, injections and gel. The second most stable form of testosterone are injections. So the administration schedule for most folks is weekly. So some folks who do have shot anxiety will go every 10 days or every 2 weeks, or I know in the UK they inject like every once a month, which is mind-blowing. That's not great, but that's just how their system is set up. And something to keep in mind with injections is the more often you inject, the more stable your levels will be, right? So a lot of cis men who are on HRT actually inject every day, every other day, because it's just more stable rather than injecting once a week or every 10 days or every 2 weeks. But in reality, the little dips that you might get if you inject weekly or every 10 days, it's not a big enough deal to put yourself in that position if you really hate needles, okay? And then finally, gel is the least stable form of testosterone. I've heard some folks say that sometimes the gel rubs off. That's not the biggest deal. Their levels will dip off after 24 hours, whereas someone who's injecting, their levels will dip off after 7 days, for example, depending on how many milligrams they're taking, or someone who's getting pellet insertion, their levels will dip off after 3 months, right? So we're comparing 3 months, 7 days, every single day. There's a bit of a big difference. Gel, as much as I do understand the greatness behind gel, how it's like, hey, I don't want to inject myself, I'd rather just rub the gel on me every day. Keep in mind that it can be a little bit iffy in terms of having stable levels. What is the good thing about having stable levels? Why does it matter to have stable levels? So first thing is going to be how productive your transition is depending on your transition goals. Most of the non-binary homies that I know are on gel. Reason being, it's much easier to low dose gel. So I have here my 1 ml testosterone syringe, right? So if we're looking at the smallest dosage that I could possibly take within this syringe, let's say 0.5 micrograms. That's the smallest amount that I can realistically take before all the testosterone gets stuck in this part of the needle. If you try to take anything smaller than, say for instance, 0.5 micrograms, all the testosterone is gonna get stuck in this yellow part of the needle. That's why gel becomes super duper handy. You can microdose very easily as opposed to injections, right? Also, folks don't like to inject themselves, which is understandable because your levels dip and peak on such a small basis of time so frequently, a lot of times that change that you're looking for is slower. It just takes much more time, right? Now, if you're someone who is looking to transition to fully binary male passing, right? I would say that injections are probably your best bet if we're comparing injections and gel. So something to keep in mind, a lot of folks go from injections to gel. Say for instance, you've been on testosterone for 3-4 years, you're happy with your changes and you just kind of want to get away from injecting yourself often. What are some things that you should look for to make sure that gel is working for you and that you're not crashing too much in terms of your levels, right? I'm not trying to like shit on gel or anything like that. First thing is going to be moodiness. So moodiness / irritability is a big thing. Lethargy or just generally like fatigue, not having as much energy as you usually do, which is perfectly natural when your testosterone dips. Low energy generally is the biggest thing to look out for, right? So if you are making that change from injections to gel, don't freak out. Don't impress the placebo effect upon yourself. Like just take it for what it is. Don't have any preconceived notions, but if you do start to experience these things, you have to kind of measure out what your priorities are. The next thing we're going to be looking at is which form is most common, which you guys might be able to guess, or maybe not. And then also which form is most cost effective, okay? So before I break down research that I've done, which thanks to you guys was actually pretty freaking phenomenal, I did want to give a quick shout out, and this is not an ad. I'm not getting paid for this. Nobody asked me to say this. It's just hard out here. Shit costs money. Even with insurance, things can be expensive, right? If you guys haven't heard of the app GoodRx, I've been using GoodRx since I started testosterone in like 2020? Question mark? No, it has to be 2020. GoodRx. So it's pretty much a coupon generator app, but it makes shit a hell of a lot cheaper, not just for testosterone. I use it for antibiotics. For anything I get a script for, I'm going on GoodRx and they give me a cheaper price. For instance, my testosterone is usually like 30 bucks, even with insurance. And then with GoodRx, it's like 10.72 or something like that. So it's a pretty significant difference. Let's get into which form of administration is the most common. So I ran a poll on my communities tab. You can post on my communities tab now, which is awesome. Post any freaking thing you'd like. I would love to see you guys use that. The poll results I'll pop over here. 71% of y'all, including me, do injections. 27% of y'all do gel. Nobody on YouTube specifically that entered the poll does pellets. However, a lot of other people on Instagram that I asked do pellets. And then lastly, 2% of y'all do gel. That's very, very interesting. And it seems like everybody kind of goes towards injections / gel. And that often has to do with what the provider is suggesting, right? So injections can also be the cheapest. Makes sense because it's the most widely available / common form. Also means since it's so common, you should have less issues at the pharmacy. They're pretty used to filling that. There shouldn't be any back orders. They shouldn't have to specifically order that or anything like that. Some people that I know that are on gel or also the auto inject that comes pre-filled, they have to do special orders for that. Although funnily enough, when I first started to transition and I didn't really look very male passing at all, I used to have issues with getting my testosterone filled. Like I used to have issues with getting needles. I used to have issues with getting my prescription filled. It would be late. Oh, something is wrong with the script. Versus now I'm cis passing and I literally have 0 issues with getting my script filled, probably because they just think I'm like a cis guy on HRT. I don't want to, I don't want to make assumptions here, but it's just funny how now everything is easy with my HRT, but whatever. Anyways, I will say that it seems as though gel is a little bit more common overseas, so that's freaking phenomenal. We covered what's the most common forms. Let's get into how much does it cost, coverage, insurance like that. So a lot of people for injections, their insurance fully covers their testosterone, which is awesome. Mine doesn't. I have Oscar Health and it's like 30 bucks per vial, which isn't great. Now, before I had insurance and when I was going to the Target pharmacy as opposed to now I go to CVS pharmacy, I used to get 4 single dose vials for 40 bucks. Now I go to CVS and without using GoodRx, I get 1 vial for 30 bucks. Weird. It's all weird. Now, generally speaking, it seems like most insurances do cover testosterone cypionate, the little vial that we get for injections, but it varies, right? Now, when it comes to gel, again, variance when it comes to pricing. You have to think of where people are going to get their gel. Each pharmacy is going to be a little bit different. You have to think of the state. For some reason, the state that you're in impacts the price as well. I'm sure that has something to do with the supply chain. I don't know. However, when people did have to pay out of pocket for gel, it seems like it was around 30 bucks for a 1-month supply, okay? Now, the most expensive form of testosterone is undoubtedly pellet insertion. So I did ask a couple of people what their experience / pricing was with pellets, and I got varying answers, right? So someone that I spoke to who was actually located in LA, and they actually get their pellets inserted for free, which is phenomenal. You know, I spoke to 2 other people people who were doing pellet insertions. One person said that it was $300 per insertion and they have to go back every 3 months. And then he said that with insurance, all his labs and the office visits and everything like that is covered, but the insertion is just simply not covered. Without a doubt, yeah, pellets are the most expensive. It makes sense. It's kind of almost considered a luxury, if you will, although healthcare should never be considered a luxury, but for all intensive purposes, it's a little bit different than the other forms of administration. Now, auto-inject is the second most expensive. Instead of you injecting yourself, you either have to buy this device to inject yourself, or you have to go to the pharmacy that comes with this preloaded injection device, right? The person that I spoke to regarding auto-injections lives in New York. They said that they go to a resource center called Callan Lord, which works on a sliding scale. And in order to purchase the injection device themselves, it's $24 a month, but it's free whenever they go to the freaking clinic themselves, right? Cheapest way is gonna be injections, then gel, then pellets, then auto-inject, right? I'm sure there's so much other information that could have been tagged onto this or added onto this video if I had included different forms of estrogen. I just don't know anything about that. I'm totally down to learn. I'm very curious about what your experience has been with different forms of testosterone administration. I've been on T for 5 years in November, which is mind-blowing. I've only ever done injections. I've gone back and forth between subcutaneous and intramuscular. Honestly, sub-Q is totally fine, but I've had no issues with injections. I don't love it, but it's fine. I wouldn't mind auto-inject. If you do not yet follow me on Instagram, definitely check it out at DVNSPRS. It's gonna be linked down below. If you do want a discount on pre-workout, protein powder, energy subs, focus subs, sleep subs, anything like that, definitely check out my sponsor Legion. They're gonna be down below. You can use code Devin for 20% off your first order, okay? That is the video, y'all. Like I always say, Devin loves you, Devin's a Don, and Devin is out of here, boy.